Reija, and welcome to another live show. And today I'm actually going to be doing another iteration of my live wrap-ups. So earlier this month I did, or rather in March, I did a wrap-up of my February reads, this live show style. And I thought that went pretty well, so I'm going to do that again. But this time I have come prepared with notes and slides, so hopefully this will be a much more smooth watching experience as well. And if you hear any noise in the background, that's just my kitties eating snacks. So without further ado, let's get started wrapping up all these books and comics that I read. There was a lot of comics. And there was also a lot of DNFs, unfortunately. And I also read a few Finnish books. So that's exciting that I actually did the thing and got finished some Finnish books as well. So let's get started right away. And as you can see, I have slides. So the first thing that I want to talk about is The Dangerous Convenience Store by 949. I read up until episode 16, and then I called it quits. This was a yikes series. It basically is about this two characters who are complete opposites. You have the blonde, submissive twink called Wijun, who is a university student and also works part-time at this convenience store. He's a convenience store cashier, and this convenience store is in a very dilapidated old neighborhood that a lot of gangsters and street thugs visit. And the main love interest is a mob boss called Gionu, and he is so friggin' bland. The only thing going for him as a romantic interest is his physical presence. His personality is his personality is that he smokes and scowls at people and occasionally hits people and is sexually curious. That is his entire characterization. Wijun, on the other hand, is a crybaby, very emotionally volatile, and kind of a doormat. And that is precisely the reason why I stopped reading this, is because it was so boring. It has this very sort of essentialist trope of the masculine and feminine leads. You can't have two men falling in love unless they satisfy the stereotypical dynamic of a heterosexual relationship, essentially, which is why I was like, oh, this is basically BL from the early 2000s. I can't get behind this, so I quit. And I can't say I recommend it. Also, the drawing style is very not a huge fan. And another thing that I read was My Dear Maid by Bori and Spring is Coming. This was actually a translator was credited for this one, which is great. Every time you see a slide that doesn't credit the translator where the work is in translation, you know that I could not for the life of me find the translator. So that's another huge negative for me. But My Dear Maid is essentially about this street urchin called Kate, who ends up saving a nobleman's daughter and then gets recruited as this person's maid, and that makes her sort of rise from poverty to a sort of more stable financial status. And in her position as maid, she gets to know this duke, who is also apparently has some sort of magical demonic possession transformation thing going on. but I'm not entirely sure because I DNF'd this in episode 23. I decided that I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna, because the series bills Kate as a very street savvy, intelligent woman, and yet she can't seem to realize that this blonde guy who is masquerading as a priest when he is talking to her is also the friggin' Duke of the Manor and essentially her boss. So the series relies on the main character becoming stupid when the plot calls for it, and I hate that. I hate that when a character is billed as being very competent and then suddenly just loses all of their skills and all of their competence the moment the plot demands it. Like, oh no, we need to have a misunderstanding so that this romantic tension can go on. But this character is too smart. Let's make them stupid for a bit. It just irks me so much. So I decided to DNF this season and also DNF this series. I'm not gonna go back to that. So yeah, goodbye. And then Finding Camellia. This I actually finished the whole season, and that is why it has a star rating, because I finished the entire first season, which means approximately the first volume of the story. But I am not going to continue, and part of the reason it's not actually this webcomic's fault that I am not continuing the comic. It is the web novel's fault, because this is an adaptation of a web novel by the same name, and I was also reading the web novel, and the web novel got to a point where I was basically just ready to throw it against the wall. So I decided that I'm not also going to be reading the webtoon, the webcomic either. So basically what this story is about, you have the title character of Camellia, who is like a bastard child of a marquis. And the marquis's wife comes and takes her away from the slums that she has been growing up and essentially recruits her to play boy. Like, she has to become a boy in order to become a sort of spare heir, because the marquis's actual like legitimate son is very like sickly and isn't expected to like live very long. So Camellia has to sort of like lose her identity as Camellia and become the son of the Marquis Camelius. And this is also like she gets interested in her new brother's friend Claude, who is the black-haired youth on the cover. And essentially, shenanigans ensue. This series is all about the gender-bendy things and also the gay panic that ensues when the main love interest doesn't realize that he has the hots for a woman, and instead imagines that he is having hots for a guy, and that how entirely terrible that is. Yeah, it's very tired. And it doesn't even try to really subvert any of those essentially tropes. One other thing is that this series tries to build Claude as this like he is the one you want to end up with Camellia. Claude is an inferior love interest compared to Ian, who is the gray-haired guy on the cover. Ian is the superior love interest because he knows from the get-go that Camellia is a woman. He is very much like all in, trying to take her away from her toxic family and help her look for her mom and stuff. And yet he also suffers so badly from second male lead syndrome that I know that he's never going to get the girl, even though he clearly, by all metrics, is the better choice. So that frustrates me so much. So I kind of decided to DNF this series once I DNF'd the web novel as well. But I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the web novel soonish, because I got farther in plot-wise in that, and I have some thoughts. But yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is I Don't Love You Anymore. I read the first season, and it was okay. This reminds me a lot of The Remarried Empress. It has a similar premise. It has the main character of Nivea is basically she's been used as a political pawn. She is an illegitimate daughter of a nobleman, and she's been used as a political pawn by being in an arranged marriage to this really like cold person who doesn't really love her. And she decides to end the engagement and or also get married to the king of a neighboring kingdom. And once again, you have the cold sort of love interest, who is the second lead in this, realizing their folly of not loving the woman who was in front of them the whole time, but only realizing their feelings after their engagement has been broken. So I will say that the Remarried Empress is a lot more exciting and more like has more nuanced characters and more over-the-top politics. So that is why I kind of decided that I'm not going to continue on with this series, because I'm already getting that itch. Like, I'm already getting that whole plot dynamic from another series, which is doing it a lot better. So I don't need to keep reading this. So it was fine. It was 3 stars worth while I was reading it, but like it wasn't all that. And I see Elise is here. Hi Elise, nice to have you. Hopefully you will be getting a few webtoon recommendations out of this. And Joe is here. Hi Joe, nice to have you here. And the next webtoon that I was reading is No Love Zone by Dumby. I have completed the first season, the first volume, so to speak, and then I am also reading the second season right now. I'm kind of thinking that I might quit reading it if the second season doesn't like do something incredible with its finale, but for now I'm just, talking about the first season. So this is an office romance, enemies to lovers type story. The enemies to lovers thing gets thrown out of the window about halfway through the first volume, when the characters realize their feelings for each other and are like, well, now we don't have to be enemies, I guess. But the dynamic is basically that you have these two office workers. One is basically a grunt worker at the office, does the general maintenance paperwork stuff, and the other one is his boss, his supervisor. And their past entanglement was that when they were in high school, his supervisor was super like nerdy, and now he has kind of had a glow up. And the main character, Enkyum, rejected him because he wasn't good looking enough for him. So he kind of was like, well, I like tall guys who are good looking, so I don't want to go out with you. And that is why when the Ji-hoon, the other main character, the supervisor character, has this glow up, Enkyum doesn't recognize him and kind of spills the beans that he has the hots for him, and this ends up causing kind of this weird blackmail-y situation. That is a good question. In this case, a nerdy glow up is in this context. The context of this story and a lot of manga in general is that the nerdy glow up is that your main character, like your character, has glasses. You like those bottom glasses that that bottle glasses that you can't see their eyes from. They usually have a bowl cut. They're hunched over. They're traditionally not pretty. And what the glow up means is that they, for some reason, become pretty, become the muscular Adonis that they weren't before. And it is an unfortunately overwritten and overused trope in a lot of manga and Korean and Chinese comics as well. So it's basically the character who previously was not did not meet the stereotypical beauty ideals of the mainstream, then proceeds to become like beautiful in a mainstream context. So unfortunately, a nerdy glow up in this case doesn't mean that that a traditionally attractive person becomes a nerd, because that would be more interesting or something. But yeah, they essentially, like, these characters hook up, and then after that interesting part where they are enemies to lovers, it then proceeds to show off their like relationship. They move in together and they're like all cuddly and shit, and that's when it starts to lose steam and it becomes less interesting, which is why it is sitting comfortably at a 3 stars. Like, it was fine, it was not offensive, or rather it was less offensive than some of the other things I was reading. So, you know, it's fine. I'm not sure if I actually recommend it, because like I have read so many better series. I might actually have to do an actual recommendation video for web novels, because I need to like do some shifting and actually like take the good ones out of the like bad ones and highlight them. Elise, you are absolutely right. This is correct. And let's move on to a series that I actually will recommend, because this series is so good. So The Shape of Sympathy by Nodoc is also running currently on the second season. I am currently also still reading it, but I'm focusing on this to talk about the first season. And this is a contemporary romance that is also a sort of coming out narrative, and it's also sort of very tragic. And it deals with things like self-medicating and alcoholism. It has allusions to conversion therapy and homophobia. So it is very like deals with the queer experience in South Korea specifically. And the main characters are a university student called Yuri and his former high school teacher, Sonwoo. And Sonwoo is gay, and in his teacher position, he is trying to help other youth who are like him, who also are struggling with like hiding their identity and getting bullied and stuff. And he's in a very precarious place in his professional life, because he is a teacher, but he also is a teacher in a private school, so he has to like play the politics of the school board, and he isn't a permanent staff member, so that puts him in a very precarious like place. And he's also had these unrequited feelings for his former university like school friend, and they meet up in the wedding of Yuri's sister Hiju, who is getting married to the guy Sonwoo has feelings for. And this kind of fateful encounter between them leads them to sort of start looking for, or start coming to terms with them having lost people that they care about, because Yuri also has feelings for Hiju, who is his like adopted sister. They're not related, but she has been fostered by his parents. And it's all about like both of them realizing that these unrequited feelings they have, they are also kind of projected feelings of an ideal. So they're not necessarily in love with the people themselves, but they are in love with an ideal, a concept of that person. And it's very like rough. It deals with some really heavy topics, but I am here for it every week. The relationship is so messy, and you're kind of trying to like root for these people to like get their act together and actually work shit out, and it's a slow process, but I love seeing it happen. Like they are actually like trying to like use their limited means of like communication skills to like get to the bottom of their feelings, and they're not always very good at it. And that's what makes it so interesting, because the series is so raw and messy, and it actually like allows these characters to do like really messed up things, and they are called out for it, but they're also allowed to like move past it and try to continue to work their work their problems through. It is also like established early on that Sunwoo actually like has a drinking problem, and that is a constant presence in the series, that he has a very like that he has a drinking problem and self-medicates in order to cope with his problems, and doesn't really deal with his problems head on. And that is something that I actually don't feel like I see happening a lot of the time. Like there is this idea that when you do like queer representation, that it needs to be pristine and like proper, and you can't allow characters to like show their messy sides. And I actually kind of live for the messy side of things. So I'm really appreciative that this exists. It's not perfect, but I'm really excited about this whole series. And then Finding Camellia, the web novel, which I promptly threw against a wall at chapter 34. First of all the things that I said about Finding Camellia, the webtoon, the webcomic, apply here, but I got further in plot-wise in this web novel that I did in the comic. And oh boy. Firstly, as I said with the webcomic, there is this idea of the gay panic. Basically like, oh no, I am having a crush, I am in love with this person who is presenting as a guy, and oh no, does that make me gay? There's that. But this whole book also employs the predatory gay trope, which, you know, is a thing. So it basically introduces a character who is in an authoritative position. He's a teacher, and proceeds to lust after the main character because he doesn't know that she is a woman. And that character is essentially used as a means to show that the main character themselves, Camellia in this case, is naive for believing that this character doesn't have any sinister ill intentions toward her. And it is also shown, this character is also used to make Claude, the main lead, seem more reasonable and more worldly, because he knows the truth behind this other character's like intentions. And there's also this weird thing where it uses like Camellia is like, well, you know, this character's like sexual orientation doesn't matter. Like, what if this teacher has like interest towards men? I don't care. So this idea of her having this progressive line of thought is used to further emphasize her naivete and her innocence. And it is then in a later scene where this character then proceeds to sexually harass her, used to sort of emphasize that you were wrong, and you were wrong for being wrong, you know? And that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore with this damn book. So I stopped reading it. And once and for all, even in this web novel, Ian is the like superior love interest. Like he does even more cool things in this novel that the webcomic just access from the webcomic, because I feel like the webcomic adaptation, like the the artists and stuff behind the webcomic realized that if they would show those scenes with Ian that are in the book, if they showed those in the webcomic, people would not even see Claude as an option for Camellia, because Ian is clearly the better option. So, yeah, this, like, finding Camellia sucks. I'm just, yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much. And the weird thing is, it is super popular right now. It has the webcomic, the web novel, and I hear that there's also going to be a drama adaptation at some point. And I'm like, ugh! It irks me. It irks me so much. Also, I'm always kind of like weirded out that these very like gender bendy type of stories where you have a character masquerading as like a female character masquerading as a boy, and they're always showing the struggle of that character masquerading as someone who she doesn't feel she is inside, but it doesn't really like allow for that awareness of this narrative could actually be used to deconstruct some of the like heteronormative essentialist viewpoints that we might have in our actual lives. But it does not do any of that. Just a cool premise. I will do nothing with it. I will give you nothing. Exactly, Maya. Ian deserves better. And yes, this is entirely true in terms of like the previous title, Sympathy of The Shape of Sympathy. Like you can have so many different ways of self-medicating. I sometimes think that, for example, food can be a self-medicating thing as well. Anything that basically you use to escape something. And I feel like it doesn't really get shown off that often. So yeah. Exactly. This was like, I kept thinking about that meme when I was reading this of how in Disney's Mulan, when they are in the mountains, Shan comes into the tent and sees Mulan, with her chest out, and you can see the moment where he's like, oh thank God, like the gay panic leaving his body. And that was what I was thinking about the whole time I was reading this, was that scene, because the memes were memeing. And then this has been okay. This has been one of my favorite things. So I had talked about this in February as well, but I have been reading the fan translation of this web novel. Now I finally got to read the official translation, though the translation is not credited once again, really books, what the hell. But now I've read the fan translation, the official translation of the first part of the season, and the web comic, all in the span of like these 2 months. So I have to admit, I am obsessed with this story. Is it the best story ever told? No. But something about this just makes me so damn happy. It's like the perfect escapism. So, Under the Oak Tree is about Maximilian, who is a duke's daughter. And 3 years prior to the beginning of the story, she got married in an arranged marriage to a landed knight who isn't a part of the nobility and is sort of like this, upstart, in the eyes of the nobility. And the reason they got married is that Max's father wanted to avoid going on this really dangerous war campaign. And because he arranged his daughter to be married to this landed knight, he could then sort of push that war campaign on this knight, expecting him to die on that campaign. Well, lo and behold, he comes back 3 years later, he is all rich, and he has the ear of the king, and everything's all peachy. and he has come to take Maxie to his to his own lands. And it's all about this like idea of building trust between these people who are technically married on paper, but they don't actually know anything about each other. And there's also this kind of resentment between them because the main male lead is so resentful of her father. But he is also very like aware that her father is this like super rich duke, and she has lived this at least in his eyes, she has lived this very grand, luxurious life. So he has this sort of inferiority complex with regards to that. So he's always trying to like make sure that Maxie is getting all the like luxury that she needs. When in fact, she has been abused all her life for like being sort of like she has had a stutter, like a very severe stutter all her life. And that has caused her father to kind of like disown her and shun her from society. Like she has basically been isolated in her father's like palace. And the freedom that she now experiences because she gets to escape her father through his husband, because her husband takes her away from that abusive place. And it's like there's so many things that this story tries to do. It tries to tackle like all these like toxic tropes in romance. Like you have the main male lead who is jealous, who is overbearing and overprotective, and those are all shown as being bad things. There are many instances in this book where Maxie actually is thinking about like, okay, like she is directly comparing her husband to her father, which is not a good thing. And the novel actually makes a show of that, like presenting that as something that isn't positive, and like trying to get these characters to work through that. And it also is all about Maxie growing in agency, finding like her own voice, finding her own talents, coming to terms with the fact that even if she has a stutter, and a very severe stutter at that, that does not make her like less intelligent or less capable. And it has been so fun so far. Like I just really love this. Like I don't know why. Like objectively speaking, it probably isn't all that great, but I just like, this is like crack to me. I love it. I'm just like, give me more. I want to like, I need to consume it. It's like toast. It tastes great with butter. I don't know where this allusion is going. Anyway, it's also like super erotic. Like this is fantasy romance, but there are so many erotic scenes in this. So if you are not a fan of like pretty semi-graphic sex scenes, you might want to give this a pass. The web comic version of this actually kind of access a lot of the erotic scenes and makes it more tame. So like if you want to experience the story but are not really a fan of erotic scenes, then the web comic might actually be a better bet, because this the web novel like goes all in with the romantic scenes between the main couple, especially since having sex seems to be the way they deal with all the conflicts. So yeah, I gave 3.5 stars because I like it, but also because I can't justify giving it like a higher rating, because I know that objectively it's not it is not the best. But I just in like mentally this is my thing. I love it. And then I read Love After the End, edited by Joshua Whitehead. So this was the March pick for the Shorts and Sorcery Book Club, and me and Joe actually did a live show just yesterday talking about this. And it is basically all about like sort of end of the world stories told through a queer and indigenous lens. And I thought that the anthology had a lot of really interesting stories. My favorite personally was a story by Darcy Littlebadger, But Darcy Littlepatcher has not let me down. And yeah, okay. At least this makes me happy, and I might have to stalk you at some point to hear your thoughts about it, because I need someone I need someone to gush about this series with me, because I love it so much and nobody else is reading it. So I'm trying to get other people to read this, and I'm also scared because I know that it might not go down well with others, but I love this. Yes. Go watch that live show if you haven't already. It's on my channel as well. But yeah, this anthology was kind of sweet. I didn't love all of the stories, but I feel like all of the stories, even the ones that I wasn't a huge fan of, actually made me think concepts outside of the story. It made me think about the ways the stories could have been improved or elaborated upon. I love when an anthology has stories that actually make me think after the fact. The story doesn't just end when I read it, but it sort of is left simmering in my brain. So in that sense, that it was a very successful anthology, and I gave it 3 stars because, there were some stories that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but the ones that I liked a lot. So I would recommend this. Definitely would recommend Love After the End. And then some more manga or comics. I read the volume 6 to 8 by Witch Hat Atelier by Kamame Shirahama. Translator was Stephen Kohler. And I am just loving everything about Witch Hat Atelier. If you want a magical school setting with a story that actually explores things like disability and societal separation between witches and non-magical folk, and actually does it well, this is very good. It is so good. I am just loving this. I can't wait for the 9th volume to come out. These 3 volumes kind of deal with Kifri, who is the main character's teacher. They deal with his past, and they also deal with Coco struggling with the limitations of the rules by which the witch society that she's part of, how the rules work, and she's kind of rubbing against the different rules. And it also kind of explores this idea of how this society views, for example, disability, especially volume 8 does that a lot, and how the witch society of the conical witch hat witches and the brimmed hat witches, how they have a very, very separate view on ways of viewing ability and disability, and also how to treat it. And yeah, I know Kifri is so great, and the moment I realized that Kifri and Olrugio have traded their tassels that they have on their witch hats, and they are now wearing each other's tassels, and they are raising all these witches together in their atelier. I mean, they're my best boys, my best dads. I love them. And that is also why some of these volumes made me really sad, because Olrugio deserves better. Yes, it is just... I can't wait for this series to go on. It is just so good, and I can't wait for more brimmed hats, more brimmed hat witches to come around and show us what that part of the world is like, or that part of the magical society is like. I need more escalation. I need more conflict. Give it to me now. But I'm also really happy about these volumes that explore the sort of world building aspects of the story. So yeah, it's getting so good. Definitely one of my favorite ongoing manga series right now, and I am happy to continue reading it, especially now that I only have 3 volumes left to read of The Girl from the Other Side, and that series has already ended. And once I have finished it, it has ended. And then I have one less series to enjoy. So I'm glad that Witch Hat Atelier is keeping me interested and engaged, because it is so good. Highly recommend this. And then I read Restart After Coming Back Home by Kokomi, and translator was Anna Schnell. And this is a slice of life contemporary romance. It is a standalone. There is a companion volume that has come out just recently, but this works completely as a standalone, and it is about these two young men finding romance with each other, but also finding their purpose in life, coming to terms with what they want from their lives. And it's also about this idea that, especially with the other main character, Yamato, who is the blonde person in the cover, he is an orphan who has been adopted, and he has this idea that he doesn't expect a lot of other people. He doesn't really expect to be loved, and therefore he also is very like distant, keeps an emotional distance from other people. So it's about him sort of coming to terms with his feelings for Mitsuomi, the other main character, and sort of allowing himself to have these feelings and allowing himself to experience like actual romantic relationships for the first time. And with Mitsuomi, it's this idea of him coming to like rising to the occasion, because he is someone who is always been viewed as sort of flaky. He flits from job to job. He doesn't really like seem to have any ambition to anything. So it's about him finding his like what he wants to do in life and how to get it. And so this is a really sweet story. It's all about the romance and this like the life these two characters lead, and there isn't actually like a sort of sexual component. Like you don't ever see these characters like have a sexual encounter. The most you see is them kissing, and that's it. And it's actually pretty like nice. You see that there is tension there. You see that there is like cuddling and scenes alluding to a more like sexual relationship between these characters, especially in the like last chapter. But it isn't ever shown. But you get the idea that yes, these characters are fully in an adult relationship, but the author just didn't feel it was necessary to actually show that, so the story can focus on other things, the more like emotional core of the story. So yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm probably going to be reading the companion volume at some point, but I don't like feel like a pressing need to do that. But it's nice that it's out there, so I might do that later. Yes, please do. More people need to read Witch Hat. Kamome Shirohama needs to like get coins and stuff, because like that series is so good and it needs to have an anime adaptation ASAP. I want it. I want to hear who would voice Kifri and who would voice Olrugio. I already have some fan cast ideas of the seiyus that would voice them, but I need this series to have an anime adaptation at some point. And then another series that I really loved. Semantic Error just had its second season end, and now it's on a hiatus. I'm waiting for the third season to come out at some point. I talked about the first season in my previous wrap-up, and the first season was great. The second season is even better. This is first of all, this is an enemies to lover story done right. You have enough stakes for them to be enemies that it makes sense that they start off on the wrong foot. Basically, the main character of Sangwoo basically is in a group project with Jaeyoung, the other main character. And Jaeyoung completely flakes the project and expects to get credit for it because this is the last course that he needs to complete to graduate from university. And Sangwoo is like, no, I'm actually going to rat on the professor that none of these people who were in my group did anything, So he's the only one to get the credit and a passing grade for the course, and the other people who were in his group get a failing grade, which then results to Jae-young being unable to graduate. And this causes Jae-young to resent Sang-woo immensely, and he starts to exact revenge in very, very petty ways to get back at him. And this sort of ends up with them first being like enemies, then slowly working forward to becoming friends, and now they're sort of starting to engage in a more romantic relationship. And it's very good. It deals with topics like consent. It deals with topics like that there doesn't need to be a strict top-bottom dynamic in a male-male relationship. It talks about things that if you don't want to do certain things, you are in your it is completely valid to not want to do those things. And like communication is a huge part between these two characters. Like they actually talk about things, and they talk about the things they want to do. They talk about the things they want this relationship to be, and it's so nice. It's also very humorous, and I like the art style. It is very sort of 90s and 80s style. Like think of Banana Fish, for example, but make it more modern. Like it has that very retro art style, but with a modern twist, because it takes place in the modern times. And this is also an adaptation of a web novel, which unfortunately has not been translated to English. But this Semantic Error is currently running on Manta app, which is where I have been reading it, the official translation. And it's so great. I love it so much. Like this is one of the better queer romantic stories that I have read ever. It is so good. I definitely would highly recommend this to people, because it's nice. And then, oh boy, I read the first Finnish book I have read in ages, and this was also one of my anticipated releases for the year. This is Oboin Kirja by Veera Salmi. Also, the title would translate to The Book of Oboy. And this is so weird. First of all, it is very genre bending. Like it could be read as science fiction or fantasy, and also climate fiction in a sense. It has a lot of intertextuality and allusions to other pieces of fiction. And it's also very bendy in terms of demographics. Like I had read 70% of this book before I realized, okay, this must be targeted towards a late middle grade, early YA audience, because there were so many things in this book in terms of the topics it covered and the tone it was written that were pulling me one way or the other. Like, is this for adults? Is this for young adults? Is this for middle grade? Nothing makes sense in terms of the tone. So this was a very weird book to read. It had so many interesting ideas. It sort of gives a magical twist to a lot of things. Like, for example, there is a character who has dealt with trauma by way of sort of isolating herself completely of the traumatic experience, which when she is confronted with even talking about that traumatic experience, she freezes over. Literally, she becomes a block of ice. And that is such a magical twist of that, this idea that when you are forced to relive something uncomfortable or something, that you become sort of a deer in the headlights, you freeze, you don't know what to do, but it's that taken to an extreme. And there are so many things like that in the book that are so interesting, but the book never really takes them to the next level. They don't get developed deeply enough. And also it becomes sort of this mismatch of disconnected events that sort of broadly connect, but not really. So it was a very dissatisfying experience to read it because it felt very disorienting, and it didn't feel fully developed enough. Like everything was kind of surface level and did not really go the distance. So that's why I gave it 2 stars. Like I I'm I am. I should not say that I'm glad that I read it, because actually I'm not glad that I read it. I feel like this book kind of wasted my time, but I also think that there were some ideas that I'm glad to have read. So I'm very conflicted, but I didn't like it, so that's why it's 2 stars. Like it tried. It was a very interesting first attempt. This was a debut book. I would be interested to know what a younger reader would make of this, but I also don't know if I would recommend it to a middle grade audience, because it tackles with some very, very adult themes, like very, like, really dark stuff. And I'm not sure, like, if a younger person would be like, how they would cope with those things. So, like, as I said, it's very weird in terms of like demographic. Like, I would not know who to recommend this book to, because on the one hand it reads too young for adults, but it reads too adult for like kids. So uncomfortable is what it made me. Exactly. I had so much hope for this, and unfortunately it did not deliver, and that sucks, but it is what it is. And then I read another Finnish book, Kuolleiden valssi by Marko Hautala, which also would translate to Waltz of the Dead. And this is a horror short story, like anthology or short story collection, because all the stories in this are written by Marko Hautala, so it's not an anthology, it's a short story collection, because it's a single author collection. And Marko Hautala actually has some stories that have been translated to English. One of them actually got nominated for the like Shirley Jackson, like the horror award. So that was interesting. I did not know that before. And I went into this expecting not really much of anything, because this was the first time I read anything by Marko Hautala, even though he is a very prolific author and he is quite like known in the horror genre outside of Finland. But I wanted to read it because this cover is everything. Like, this cover made me want to pick it up. This was also on my most anticipated releases list, mostly for the cover. And this had the same thing as other anthologies or short story collections. Some stories worked for me, others didn't. But the stories that worked for me were really good. Like, there was one story in here called Loki, which is about a dog and a dog's relationship to like his owner, and it deals with death of a child and coming to terms with like the dog is essentially adopted as a replacement for a dead child, and these sorts of like horrific implications that come with that and stuff. It was a very good story. And another story that I did not think I would like, but I ended up liking, was this story where an end of the world happens and people are live tweeting about it on Twitter. And it's basically a collage of tweets from various people. And it makes fun of like certain Finnish political figures. For example, there is this leader of a certain populist political party that no person in their right mind would like. That's an opposition party in Finland right now. And the story kind of takes that real life person, changes like the name for the character, but still alludes to the real person's name. So when you read the name, you are like, I know who this is supposed to riff on. And it was so true to life to what the Finnish Twitter discourse is that it was kind of uncomfortable to read, because I was like, this hits too close to home. Like, this is too much like what Twitter is actually like. but make it like live tweeting about the impending doom and apocalypse and end of the world. So that story actually ended up being one of the standouts. Like this was actually like really good. I would recommend it. Some of the stories are clearly like nostalgic about this sort of like 80s alternative rock and roll scene, and also like the sort of 80s type of masculinity. Like some of the stories are really nostalgic for that, and those stories definitely were not my favorite. But like the stories that I really liked, once again, were real standouts, and I liked a lot. So yeah, if you can read Finnish, or basically if you know Finnish, or know or can pressure someone in the publishing industry to take a look at this book to see that if it could get translated, I would recommend this. Actually, I would also say that the language isn't too complicated if you were, for example, a person who is learning Finnish and would want to pick up a Finnish book. The language in this is actually pretty straightforward in terms of like trying to pick up new vocabulary and stuff if you are learning Finnish. But yeah, for Finns, I would give it a thumbs up. It was quite good. And I don't read horror almost ever, so that is saying something. I am a complete slut for good covers. I'm not gonna lie. That is what I am, and I'm not sorry about it. It only sucks when the book ends up being not good. Then I kind of feel cheated. But then again, it's also like me being cheated by my own vanity, and it's not actually the book's fault. It's the job of marketers to make books appealing, So it's just, yeah. But I would rather watch a nice cover than a bad cover. And finally, I want to talk about the very last thing that I got to read in March, and also probably the best thing. If you're like, I feel like this and Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk and Semantic Error by J. Suri and Angie are the best things. Like both got 4.5 stars, and they're both like different formats. One is a comic, one is a novel, but like these are the stories that I think objectively are the best things that I read. So the Midnight Bargain takes place in a secondary fantasy world where there is magic, and the use of magic is restricted from women, because there's this idea that the way the magic works is that you make bargains with spirits, and the spirits that are in the like ethereal world want nothing more than to experience the life of the physical world. So the reason why women get restrained from using magic is that when they get married, they get put into this like warding collar that prevents them from using magic, because if they become pregnant while they are uncolored, a spirit could potentially possess their child, and then a spirit-born child would be born. And that is not something people want. So this warding collar becomes this metaphor for lost agency, and also it is a tool of the patriarchy, so to speak. Like literally, that's what it is. And in lesser hands, this whole concept could become very trite and unappealing and sort of too on the nose. But I think C.L. Polk manages to like make it feel like a real issue. Like there are some really heart-wrenching scenes in this book, and I was at one point I was tearing up because I was like, oh, I feel that. And like it manages to touch something, like it makes a fantastical problem resonate with the real world. Like you can like feel for these characters because you feel like these are problems that we also have in the real world. Like trying to control women's reproductive rights, trying to control like these are real issues that are happening still currently in the current world. So it's a very topical book. But it's also this idea that it's basically takes inspiration from like 17th century, like late 17th century, like European fashions. It's very like pre-Regency era, like inspired. It has those like parties that the ingenues who are trying to get married go to, and it's all like fantasy of manners, and like there's this daring wit and all that is happening in this book. And I just loved the conversations between all of these characters, because this is not so much about action and like people doing things so much that it is about people politicking and people like talking about things and like using their wits instead of their like physicality to solve problems. It's great. I will say that the latter fourth, like the last 25 or so percent, the very ending climax kind of did lose me, because this book is such a slow burn with the characters, with the characterization, with world building, everything, that when the climax happens, it kind of feels rushed, because the story beats, like the pedal gets hit to the metal, like what's the association? Like it goes full tilt ahead, and I kind of felt a sort of pace whiplash from it, because I was like, oh wait, this is not how the story has worked so far. Suddenly we have action scenes and things are happening at a breakneck pace, and solutions are like flying at me from God knows where. Like what the hell is going on? Like it kind of felt overwhelming, and because of that, some things in the end did not feel fully earned, because I feel like they did not have enough of that foreshadowing and exploration of it before they reached a conclusion, if that makes sense. But I really love this. I read this book in like 2 days. I just was so glued to it from the moment I started reading it. C.L. Polk's writing style, très magnifique. It was great. Really love this, and I read this from the library. I'm definitely getting my own physical copy, because there are some passages that I want to underline and comment on, and that never happens. Well, it sometimes happens, but mostly it doesn't happen. Like there are passages in this book where I felt like, oh, that actually touches me, that moves me to do something about things in my real life. Like that's powerful. That's a powerful feeling to have when you are reading a book that you feel like it is actually like shifting something inside you, if that makes sense. So just a fantastic story. And yeah, it's over. Those are the things that I read. It took me an hour? Jeez. But yeah, those were all of the things that I read in the month of March. Now you probably understand why the heck I did not want to sit down and film this and edit this and stuff. It's just much more chill and easy to do the live show version, because holy heck, there is so much stuff. Exactly, I read so many things, and actually, like, I feel like April is also going to be similar. I feel like the reason why there are so many titles that I need to talk about is that I have just discovered webtoons and webcomics, and you have weekly things to like read. So yeah. Applauds. I did it. I made it. Great job. Me. Yay. And great job you for watching. I have not actually read Witchmark by C.L. Polk. I want to do that. I want to read the whole Kingston cycle, but I feel like if their books are anything similar to The Midnight Bargain, I will probably love them, because this book was like such a treat. It was like candy. I hope you have a great night as well, a great day, a great rest of the weekend, and the greatest week ever. Like, I hope positive and good vibes for everyone watching this and everyone who is not watching this. And if you are someone watching this on the recorded version, please leave me a comment or leave me a star emoji in the comments. So yeah. And also, if you are currently watching this live, which of these titles seemed the most interesting to you? Like what is it, a comic or is it one of the novels? Like, which of these titles is like something, oh yeah, that I'm interested in? Because I'm always interested to know that. Yes, I'm probably going to be making this a monthly thing, because it is just so much easier and more like fun and engaging for me to do it the live show way, especially if there's people that I'm engaging with. So it's just developing this rapport between the viewer and the viewer and me, essentially. This makes me incredibly happy because Semantic Error is great, and if I can make more people read it so that I can potentially have more people to like gush about it with me, that makes me very happy. Also, Semantic Error is one of those like series where you have a romantic couple that is completely different from each other. You have an extroverted bisexual party goer, and you have an autistic face blind sort of not really sure of their sexuality kind of romantic interest. So yeah, it's great, so good. I can't wait to talk about Witch Hat Atelier with you, because it is so great. I can't wait to see what you think about it, and especially like the magical school aspects of that story are so great. Like I feel like it does the whole magical society, magical school aspect of it in a very like unique and different way. So yeah, it's so good. Okay, I love that everyone is like wanting to read Witch Hat and Semantic Error, but honestly, the Under the Oak Tree like interest is getting to me as well. I really love that, because like here's the thing. I'm sort of scared to be recommending Under the Oak Tree because I feel like it will be a very divisive series. Like you either will love it or you will hate it. But also I just love it because it tries to at least tackle with those tropes in romance that are sometimes viewed as kind of toxic and overused, and it tries to sort of like it utilizes them, but it also tries to like get under the trope skin and like dismantle it and dissect it and make it something better. Is it always successful? No, but I'm at least happy that it tries to do something about it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will see you next month for another wrap-up live show, but I will probably be seeing you sooner with some more like actually edited and produced content on the channel. And I should probably also advertise that on Sunday, April 24th, there is going to be a Stitch and Bitch live show on my channel as well. I am probably going to be scheduling that later this coming week, but we have already decided on the date. April 24th, another Stitch and Bitch live show on this channel. So yeah, look forward to that as well. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye bye!